Ladies and gentlemen of the press, today we want to talk about the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. And we are saying that MPs plotting power grab in the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. A major standoff is currently underway in the country, pitting our two houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, against each other. On the surface, this standoff is about the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill 2024. The hidden reality, however, is that this standoff is about a power grab and an assault on the Constitution that members of the National Assembly want to execute, and which will amount to a cruel betrayal of the people and an overhaul of our structure of governance. This development has been brewing for some time since the coming of the National Government Constituency Development Fund and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, which are in the hands of members of the National Assembly. These funds give MPs the power to conceive, implement projects, and oversight them at the same time. Having managed to entrench this anomaly, members of the National Assembly are now attempting to determine the amount of money counties get, despite the clear constitutional provisions on the revenue sharing. The members of the National Assembly are also scheming to dip their fingers into more executive projects like road maintenance levy fund at the national constituency level, in addition to the National Government Constituency Development Fund and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. The Constitution assigns 3 roles to members of Parliament, and this is universal. 1, representation; 2, legislation; and 3, oversight. I repeat, representation, legislation, and oversight, period. Execution or implementation of programs has never been and can never be the job of members of Parliament without creating a serious accountability crisis in our governance system to the detriment of us all. Parliament makes laws and ensures that the laws are implemented and followed. It is against this backdrop that I find the ongoing standoff between our two houses of Parliament over division of revenue extremely scary, unhelpful, and unnecessary. The Constitution we promulgated in 2010 guides the way the government and our country works. It divides the government into 3 parts, each with the power to keep the other parts under control. It further creates 2 levels of government: the national government and 47 county governments. The 3 parts you know: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The 2 levels of government work in close consultation as espoused in Article 6, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which states, and I quote, "The governments at the national and county levels are distinct and interdependent and shall conduct their mutual relations on the basis of consultation and cooperation," unquote. Now, because MPs want to have their way with the abrogation of the Constitution and getting their pound of the flesh with regard to NGCDF, the Senate and the National Assembly are unable to agree on something the law is so clear about sharing of the revenue between the national government and the county governments. Apparently, the National Assembly is in support of provisions that will lower the amount of money shareable to counties against the provision of the laws of the land and the tradition established since the coming of the devolved units. Against the laws of the land, the National Assembly is supporting a proposal that would provide that any revenue shortfall in the country is borne by both levels of government. The result of this unhelpful and unnecessary deadlock is that the operations of the already strained devolved units are moving towards a standstill with critical services in jeopardy. This unlikely and unhelpful fight over allocation of revenue to counties threatens a shutdown at the counties at a time Kenyans need the units to function optimally and help boost the country's increasingly fragile economy. The National Assembly is pushing for the proposed amendment to the Division of Revenue Act, in which they recommend a 380 billion allocation to counties, which stands in contrast to the 400 billion already stipulated in the Appropriations Act, which is currently in force. The National Assembly is going all out to reduce revenue allocation to counties in complete disregard of the Constitution and the recommendations of the Senate. This move is not only illegal and unconstitutional, it also sets an extremely dangerous precedent which, if allowed to stand, will lead to a slow but steady strangulation and eventual killing of counties. The National Assembly must get it very clear that revenue allocation to counties can only go up, not down, unless the intention is to kill devolution. The Senate had asked for 416 billion for counties for the year 2024-25. After negotiations, Senate settled on the figure of 400 billion, which is set out in the Division of Revenue Act 2024. The law is clear that counties get at least 15% of the national revenue, and 400 billion is 15% of the national revenue. Every 5 years, this country goes to elections, and all positions are available, from the president to governor to Senate to MPs and all the way to the members of county assemblies. People know the roles and responsibilities assigned to positions they choose to run for, and nobody should attempt to change the roles and responsibilities midway. It is urgent that both houses come together to allow the country government get their rightful share of funds and discharge their responsibilities to the people of the country. The National Assembly must do the right thing and work with the Senate to get the correct amount of money to counties. More than a decade into the two levels of government, the management and funding of devolved units should be getting more efficient and more predictable. The current standoff and attempts to tamper with allocation indicate a dangerous backward march. I urge our members of parliament to be enablers of devolution and refuse to be in partnership with those determined to frustrate and kill devolution. End of statement. But I may just add off the cuff that devolution that we came up with has got many enemies. Many people do not want devolution to work in this country. You know, we had put in the Constitution a minimum of 15%, but it does not have to be the minimum. It can go higher up. That's why in the BBI we had wanted to raise it to a minimum of 35%. For your information, in a country like Nigeria, which is devolved, a three-tier, the local governments get 20% of the revenue. The state government get 35%. The federal government gets 45%. In other words, 55% of the total revenue in Nigeria are devolved. And that's when the devolved units work is when the country works. It is in the interest of the national government to release more resources to the counties. That is when this country is going to be properly run. Because there are several devolved functions like health, like agriculture, and part of infrastructure, which is not working properly because resources are not going down to the counties. A big chunk of the money going to counties today is purely for recurrent expenditure, paying salaries to the staff. Very little money is remaining for the governors to do development work. And that's the reason why I find it very unfair that governors are being blamed for lack of development in their counties. And members of parliament should move away from trying to construct roads, from trying to construct health centers, schools and so on. Those are the responsibilities of the county government, not a national parliament. Thank you. No, only this.